Hello, one and all. Welcome. Today in not so sunny Edinburgh, we are unboxing yet another beautiful Commander deck. This is the first Commander deck of March of the Machine. And today, Scotty and I are going to look through the cards inside the deck, what the deck is composed of, the themes. We're going to break it down, and also kind of a new thing that we're trying. We're going to try and give you a little bit of a deck tech upgrade, cards that we think you might want to implement to make the deck better, and so on and so forth. This is going to be the first of the March of the Machine decks that we're going to look through, and yeah, we're pretty excited. Realistically, there haven't been any other decks like this in a long time, because these decks come with Planechase cards and also synergy with Planechase cards themselves. So this is going to be pretty exciting. Thank you very much, Scotty, for this intro. And as usual, I'm joined also by the Lament configuration, just for good luck, but realistically, you don't really need luck. It's a pre-con deck. So what are the contents of this pre-con deck? So this pre-con deck contains 100 cards, out of which only 10 cards are new. And this is a bit of a bummer, because lately they've been having less and less newer cards in the deck proper. Now, of course, if you count the fact that this set has new Planechase cards, then it kind of balances out. But yes, 10 new cards is kind of a bit of an annoyance. Then you have 10 Planechase cards, 10 double-sided tokens, Planar die, which each deck will contain. And we're pretty excited about those, as we haven't seen Planar die in quite a while. You get the display commander, the life wheel, a deck box, which is not going to be very useful if you sleeve your cards, a strategy insert, and a reference card. Now, the difference with these kind of decks is that before, when you would get the 5 proper decks released for Commander, it used to be a single standalone expansion just for these 5 decks, and it used to happen once a year. Now, these have changed because, as we know, every expansion for the past few years has come with some sort of Commander deck. For example, the past few expansions have had 2 Commander decks each. This one has 5 decks, and it's becoming a little bit absurd because every month there's a new Commander deck. Now, if you keep in mind that Commander is the most played format out of all Magic the Gathering, 70% of the players actually play Commander, it makes sense that Wizards of the Coast will want to monetize this thing as much as possible, but realistically, it's a bit annoying because the release of the proper 5 Commander decks was something to look forward to, and usually these decks tend, or used to be, very, very high quality for pre-cons. Now, I've not looked into the cards much. I've looked into the overall theme of the deck, yes, but it's going to be a surprise for me as well. So here we go, and we will open the deck proper. Yes, it counts with a sample pack. And now, what do we have here? This is Growing Threat. Let's go. Let's open it up. Let's see how it goes. All right, so from what I can see at the front, this is going to be a Phyrexian-based deck. There aren't a lot of Phyrexian-based decks in these 5 decks. From what I can see from the display boosters, this is going to be the only single one that really has a lot of Phyrexian integration. I guess you can't. I guess I expect you to. Oh, that's why, because of this. I think it got stuck at the bottom. Okie dokie. So that's the box at the outside that we put there. And then inside you get the following contents. You get the Planechase cards. It comes with this paper, black paper bag or whatever. You get the collector's booster sample pack. You get the proper Planechase cards. Yes. And then inside of this, you get on the side the contents of the deck. And here you get a little bit of tokens, as usual. And you get the deck box, which you can build up. And I really like the deck boxes. It's unfortunate that they're very tiny and they won't really hold the cards if you're going to sleeve them, as I said before. It's just a shame because the deck boxes are kind of cute. Then you get the deck proper. Yes, and that's it. I think. Okay, and then you see the Planar die here. This is gonna be important for playing Planechase. And then you get the deck, the display cards and tokens, an insert, and the spin down counter. So these are the proper contents of the deck. So first things first, we're going to start off with having a look at what's inside the collector's booster pack sample. And then we're going to move on to the Planechase cards and onto the rest of the deck. So I'll put this away onto the side for now, and we will look at the collector's booster pack. All right, so inside these collector booster sample packs, you're supposed to get either a traditional foil or non-foil outboarder rare or mythic rare card, and a traditional foil Multiverse Legends uncommon card. So realistically, we are not going to be able to get super amazing pulls here. I mean, you can still get really nice cards, but you won't get any special treatments such as serialized. You won't be able to get anything that's going to be a halo foil because supposedly, this is what they say, you only get the outboarded rare or mythic rare that's traditional foil or non-foil. And the other one is an uncommon. But we will see. Anyway, here we go. Here we open this. It's really easy to open compared to the actual booster packs proper because, it opened with the strength of a sneeze. And there you go. This is, of course, there you go. We're in theme. We have our outboarder mythic, which is Brimaz, the commander for this deck proper. So we have Brimaz, Blight of Oreskos. We will look at this commander when we get to unboxing the proper commander. So we'll put it aside, and then you get the uncommon foil, Wrath, Weatherlight, Stalwart, and that's it. Those are the contents of the sample pack. Okay, so moving on to the Planechase cards. Now, for those wondering, the Planechase card sizing is actually 8.8 centimeters in height and 12.6 centimeters in width. So therefore, to get the correct sleeves, you need to look at these measurements on the websites that you're buying the sleeves on to make sure that if you want a perfect fit, you get the right measurements. For example, here we have the Ultimate Guard Perfect Fit oversized sleeves. As you can see here, it's 89 millimeters by 127 millimeters, which translates as 8.9 by 12.7 centimeters. So it's just perfect, supposedly, just a bit bigger, 1 millimeter bigger, but these sizes are supposed to fit perfectly. All right, so without further ado, we will look at the Planechase cards. It comes in a little plastic wrapper. Just pull them open like that. All right, so this is what the back of a Planechase card looks like. It's quite nice. It's different from the normal Magic the Gathering back. I've not actually played with Planechase cards before. I've never seen them. I've in proper games. I've only ever seen them on websites. So this is going to be a first. I will not go into detail on how to play Planechase. There are quite a few beautiful guides out there, but I will look at the phenomenons and the planes proper and their abilities. So we will start with Spatial Merging, which is a phenomenon card. When you enter Spatial Merging, reveal cards from the top of your planar deck until you reveal 2 plane cards. Simultaneously, planeswalk to both of them. Put all other cards revealed this way on the bottom of your planar deck in any order. Then we have the Ether Flues, which is a plane of Iquatana. And when you planeswalk to the Ether Flues and at the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, reveal cards from top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle all of the cards revealed this way into your library. And then we have when the Chaos Ensues ability is struck, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That's a really cool ability. Okay, then we have the Great Forest from the plane of Lorwyn. Each creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, and whenever chaos ensues, each creature you control get +0/+2 and gain trample until the end of turn. Then we have Panopticon. Okay, from the old plane of Mirrodin. I think this is the original Mirrodin. When you planeswalk to Panopticon, you draw a card. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card. And whenever chaos ensues, you draw another card. Alright, next up, Undercity Reaches from the plane of Ravnica. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may draw a card. And whenever chaos ensues, you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Wow, that's really good. Next, from the plane of Theros, non-token creatures are enchantments in addition to their other types. Then you have Constellation, which is whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you get 1 life. Then, whenever chaos ensues, you choose a color, add 1 mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. Then we had the Pit from the plane of the Abyss. When you planeswalk to the Pit, each player creates their choice of a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying, or a 6/6 black demon creature token with flying trample, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice another creature. If you can't, this creature deals 6 damage to you. And whenever chaos ensues, each player sacrifices a non-artifact creature. Then we get Esper from the plane of Alara, where all artifact spells cost 1 less generic to cast. And whenever chaos ensues, creatures you control, that are white, blue, and or black, become artifacts in addition to their other types until the end of the turn. Then each artifact creature you control gains Vigilance, Menace, Lifelink until the end of the turn. Then we have Noctamoon from the plane of Amonkhet. Each creature card in your graveyard has Embalm. Its Embalm cost is equal to its mana cost. Embalm does exile a creature from your graveyard and pay its Embalm cost. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie in addition to its other types and with no mana cost. Embalm only as a sorcery. And whenever chaos ensues, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. And the last one is Ketria from the plane of Ikoria. When you planeswalk to Ketria and at the beginning of your upkeep, put your choice of a Vigilance, Menace, or Trample counter on target creature you control. And whenever chaos ensues, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. So these are quite beautiful, beautiful art cards. I will say they are wonderful addition to anyone who loves the fluff, the lore, and just overall Magic the Gathering. I think I've never seen cards like these before, so seeing it for the first time, it feels like I'm playing a completely different game. It's very beautiful, and it's wonderful to see these planes come to life, because if you're a lore addict, or even if you play the game, you've heard of some of these places, a reference throughout expansions. This is really cool. As I said, won't go into how you actually play Planechase, but I really think this is nice for those people who want to learn or start and play a little bit. There you go. Here we go. We've sleeved all the cards with a perfect size fit from Ultimate Guard, and it's fitting quite well, actually. There's no problems with it. I see that everything is quite perfect. Think there, yeah, everything goes really well inside. It is kind of a little tight here at the edge. You might want a little bit more border there. If you are one who shuffles from the top, I would advise you to turn it around and do it the other way. But otherwise, yep, that's working fine. And I wanted to say that these cards actually remind me of the old arena cards that used to come with the planeswalkers or legendary creatures before they were ever even made as cards. There were things such as Urza himself, Sarah, you had Gix. So you have a lot of cards like this, and I don't remember how it actually played. I just remembered that, if I'm not mistaken, they came with boxes. I don't remember if it was the Tempest block or the Saga block, but you had these cards and you would put them in play, kind of like a commander. I think what maybe was the idea of a commander back then. And they stayed there, and you as a player always had those abilities. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's a bit of reminiscence for everybody out there who was interested. Next, you get a little bit of an introduction to the deck proper. And I wonder if you actually have, you get some ideas on how to play Planechase. So that's cool, because if you're like me, if you've never played it, this is really nice. So this is the spatial rules of Comander and Planechase. And then you turn around and you get the information about the deck itself proper. So the growing threat in Brimaz, the Blight of Oreskos. And this is really nice. As usual, it gives you a little bit of an introduction to what you've purchased and what you're about to play. Next up, we have the token and display card. So we will have a look at the cards in here, because now we can finally read what our commander does. And look at that, this thing does not. Electrostatic yet again. All right, so this is Brimaz, the Blight of Oreskos. This is a legendary creature, of course, Phyrexian cat. So look at the kitty. It's a 3/4 for 2 generic, 1 white, 1 black, so it's not an expensive cast. And whenever you cast a Phyrexian creature or artifact creature spell, you incubate X, where X is the spell's mana value. At the beginning of each end step, if a Phyrexian died under your control this turn, you proliferate. So this is really good. The synergy is around casting either Phyrexians or artifact creature spells, which allows you to create XX tokens that you can then transform into Phyrexian by paying 2 generic. And then if a Phyrexian has died under your control this turn, you proliferate. So this is not for each Phyrexian that has died. It's just if a Phyrexian has died, so keep that in mind. But still, pretty cool ability and nice looking card out here. I'm not a huge fan of the etched over the normal foiling, but at least most of the time etched foiling on normal cards doesn't bend over, so that's really nice. And then we get the tokens. You have Phyrexian golems, incubators, Phyrexian germs, angels. Interesting. And around the side you have demons, which are the ones created by the Planechase, I would reckon. Mirror, Phyrexian propers, and construct, which is a 6/12 trample. Wow. And a Phyrexian horror. Okie dokie. And now we will start the proper introduction to the deck. And as usual, we will go through every card and read them up and see what they do. So here's the pull tab. I managed to find it this time around. That's very, very good for me. I'm doing some brownie points there. Okie dokie. So we have Brimaz, or Brimaz. And then we get Mora and Tashar, which is another new card. This is a legendary creature, Phyrexian Spirit Bird. It's a 4/5 with flying. Okay, and it costs 3 generic, 1 white, and 1 black. And so this is a pair-up creature. Quite beautiful, I must say. The foiling on it is really nice. And then, whenever you cast a historic spell, return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it will leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. And of course, if you don't know what historic spells are, they are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. So this is a really cool thing. This is a nice card because it enables both interactions of Brimaz. And again, this is one of the newer cards. Really, really beautiful. Then you get how to play stuff, and then you get the deck proper. So I will turn it around now and start from the beginning. Okay, so let's start with the Icor Elixir. This is an artifact that costs 4 generic. If you would roll 1 or more planar die, instead roll that many planar die +1 and ignore 1, and you tap it to add 2 generic mana. So this is a Planechase card, and it's interesting. Again, not bad if you're playing with Planechase, but otherwise I would say very useless otherwise. All right, so next up we have another creature. It's a Phyrexian giant called Blight Titan. It's a 6/6 for 4 generic and 2 black. I think this is another new creature. With that touch, when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you mill 2 cards, and then incubate X, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Not bad, actually. But it's not a bad creature. It's not enabling the Brimaz abilities, unfortunately, because you need to cast stuff from Brimaz to be able to create the tokens from him, because you need a casting cost. But otherwise, it's not a bad way to have a 6/6 Death Toucher that creates tokens. So that's not bad. And then they're always Phyrexians, and this is a Phyrexian as well. Next up, we have the Dark Steel Splicer, which is another new card. It's a 1/1 creature, Phyrexian Artificer. For 6 generic and 1 white, whenever it or another non-token Phyrexian enters the battlefield under your control, so non-token, you create X 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of your opponents that you have, and golems you control have indestructible. So if you're playing with 3 opponents, you generate 3/3, so it creates 9 power on the board for you, and they are indestructible. Again, you also have to cast a non-token Phyrexian for it. Now, instant. Excise the Imperfect is a 1 generic and 2 white. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller incubates X, where X is its mana value. This is not a bad instant interaction, and it allows you to either transform something into Phyrexian for yourself, or alternatively just get rid of something really nasty on the other side. It's always good to have interactions. Next up, we have Felgry Vector. This is a 1/1 Phyrexian construct for 3 generic and 1 white. When it enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on each of any number of target creatures, and a charge counter of each of any number of target artifacts. And then with 1 generic, you tap this and sacrifice another artifact, you proliferate. So this allows you to proliferate further. So not bad. You have a theme here, right? You have the Phyrexian generation of tokens, just Phyrexian interactions, and you also have the proliferation. So far, I haven't seen anything with Infect or Poison. We will see what happens next. Another new card, Path of the Schemer, 4 generic and 1 black. We've seen this before, but I'll read it up. Each player mills 2 cards, then put a creature card from graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's an artifact in addition to its other types. Now, this is not bad by itself because it allows you to reanimate any creature card from any graveyard onto your battlefield. So that's really good. It's still the second ability. It only has to do with the Planechase. So if you're looking at something that's better at reanimating, I would definitely cut this out, but not bad as a sorcery from the precon. Then we have Bitterthorn. This is Animus. This is a legendary artifact equipment for 3 generic, and it is a living weapon, which means that when it enters the battlefield, you create a 0/0 Black Phyrexian Germ, and then attach this to it. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle, and you equip it for 3 generic. Really, really, really good because of this ability. It allows you to ramp up really quickly. You can equip it relatively well. I mean, it's a 6 cast to equip it on the same turn that it will enter onto something bigger, but at the same time, it's quite good. I think this is a really good card, actually. I really like it. Okay, so we've organized a little bit better the table. All right, next up we have Vulpine Harvester, which is a 3/3 Phyrexian Fox for 3 generic and 1 white. Whenever 1 or more Phyrexians you control attack, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield if its mana value is less than or equal to their total power. This is really good because the whole theme is if something died, then you can proliferate, and at the same time, it's not just synergy for that, but there are cards that allow you to sack and get value out of this, and as many Commander players know, and this allows you to bring back those cards back into play, which is quite good because you'll have creatures that, you know, if you proliferate +1/+1 counters can grow up to be really big, and you bring back other big down creatures. So that's really, really nice. All right, Vulpine Harvester, that's a good card. Oh, okay, we have the Cataclysmic Gearhulk. I did not expect you here. This is a 4/5 artifact construct creature. It's a 3 generic and 2 white. It has vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control, then sacrifice the rest. I mean, not great in this kind of deck. I would say there are much better, especially for this cost. Even in this set, you have Sunfall, board wipe effects. So definitely don't understand why you would use this. You'd have Sunfall; it would be better for it. But anyway, You know, it's a Gear Hulk, and back in for the game. Oh wow! Oh nice. Now we get the Massacre Worm. This is a really good card. It's a Phyrexian Worm, 6/5 creature for 3 generic and 3 black. And when it enters the battlefield, creatures your opponent control gets -2 until the end of the turn. And whenever a creature on opponent control dies, that player loses 2 life. This is really good. And if you're playing against something that has a lot of weenies or that wants to go wide or a lot of tokens, this can go and hurt them a lot, and for each creature that dies this way, they lose 2 life, and it's a Phyrexian, so what more would you ask for? Next up, we have the Noxious Gear Hulk, which is another way to remove something from the opponent's board. It is a 5/4 construct creature. It's an artifact also, and for 4 generic and 2 black, it has menace, and when it enters the battlefield, you may destroy another target creature. If a creature is destroyed this way, you gain life equals to its toughness. Not a bad card, but it's not a Phyrexian, and also is very expensive for the cost of removing stuff. So, Phyrexian Scriptures making a comeback here. It's a saga for 2 generic and 2 black. It's an enchantment. For the first step, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature becomes an artifact in addition to these other types. Then for the second step, you destroy all non-artifact creatures. And for the third, you exile all opponents' graveyards. That's really, really good. This is a wonderful card, and that's the first enchantment. Next up, we have the Phyrexian Triniform. It's a 9/9 creature for 9 generic. It's a Phyrexian Golem artifact creature, and when it dies, you create 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golems artifact creature tokens, and you can encore for 12, which does that you can exile this card from the graveyard. For each opponent, create a token copy that attacks this opponent this turn if able. Then again, haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of your next end step, activate only as a sorcery. So this is a really, really good card because either you bring it back or in the late game, you can just, well, you know, I'll just create 3/9/9 hitting you in the face with haste. It's not bad. It doesn't have trample, but it does allow you to create extra Phyrexian Golem. So it's a replicating system. It's really, really good. I like this card a lot. Next up, we have the Soul of New Phyrexia making a comeback here. It's a Phyrexian avatar for 6 generic, and it's an artifact creature. It's a 6/6 Trampler, 5 generic, permanents you control, gain indestructible until the end of the turn. Okay, so it's like a Darksteel Foundry. And then for 5 generic, you exile him from your graveyard, permanents you control, gain indestructible until the end of turn. So it allows you to give indestructible over and over. It's a 6/6 trampler that has interactions with the meme guy of this deck. Maybe it's a bit expensive for what it does, and there are better cards, but not a bad card. All right, next up we have the Ancient Stone Idol, which is a golem artifact creature. It's a 12/12 that costs 10 generic. It has flash. Wow. This is a small thing to have flash. It's just, boom, there you go, 12/12 in your face. And it's not easy to cast, but this spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. Now, of course, remember you create a lot of Phyrexian incubation tokens. Now it has trample, and when it dies, you create a 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature token with trample. Not bad. All right, Angel of the Ruins is another artifact creature angel, flying, and when Angel of the Ruins enters the battlefield, you exile up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantment. So this is an exile interaction kind of thing. It has plain cycling for 2 generic, and it costs 5 generic and 2 white, and it's a 5/7 flying artifact creature angel. Not bad, a bit expensive for what it does. There are better effects for this cost, but still not bad to get that. All right, next up we have the Blade Splicer, which is a 1/1 Phyrexian Human Artificer for 2 generic and 1 white. And when it enters the battlefield, you create another 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token, and golems you control have first strike. So there's another theme, is the golems. So there's 4 themes within the deck itself proper. Next up, we have the Coveted Jewel, which is an artifact for 6 generic. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 3 cards. Then you can tap it to add 3 mana of any color. Okay, and whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls attack you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of the coveted jewel and tap it. Not a bad card, but realistic, I'd rather just not give my opponents this much advantage. Personally, I think it's a decent card because it's kind of like a draw and Black Lotus at the same time, but it is a very political card, and if you want more advantage, don't play it. Duplicant. Alright, this is a classic artifact creature shapeshifter. It's a 2/4 for 6 generic and has imprint. When it enters the battlefield, you make a target non-token creature, and it's any target. As long as the card exiled with Duplicant is a creature card, Duplicant has the power, toughness, and creature types of the last creature card exiled, but Duplicant is still a shapeshifter. So it doesn't gain any abilities, but it still allows you to have greater power on the board and to share the type with that specific creature. Not a bad card. Okie dokie, next up, we have the lands. We have Exotic Orchard. Exotic Orchard is a classic, we all know it. Fetid Heath. Karn's Bastion, very, very good card for this kind of deck. Then we have the Mirror Battlesphere, which is a classic, yet again, making a comeback. Mirror Construct, 4/7 creature for 7 generic. When it enters the battlefield, you create 4 colorless Mirror Artifact creature tokens, and when it attacks, you may tap X, untap Mirror you control. If you do, this card gets +X/+0 until the end of the turn and deals X damage to target player or planeswalker it's attacking. This is a very good classic card. There are a lot of combos with it, and it's nice to see. I don't know if it's a huge play in this deck, but you know, it has a big casting cost. So yes, it allows you to create some big tokens, but at the same time, it doesn't have a lot of synergy with the Phyrexian ability itself proper. Next up, we have the Nettle Cyst, which is an equipment artifact for 3 generic, and it is a living weapon. So when it enters the battlefield, it attaches itself to a 0/0 Phyrexian Germ token, and the creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control, and it equips for 2. So this is actually pretty good. I would keep that. Next up, we have the Phyrexian Delver. It's a 3/2 Phyrexian zombie creature for 3 generic and 2 black. When it enters the battlefield, return target creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield. You lose life equal to that card's mana value. So we have, yet again, ways to bring back cards from the graveyard onto play. This is the 3rd or 4th already interaction, so that's already good. Then we have the Phyrexian Rebirth, which we saw last set. It destroys all creatures. Then you create an XX colorless Phyrexian Horror Artifact Creature token, where X is the number of creatures destroyed this way as a sorcery. Not bad. It's a very good board wipe for this kind of deck. Next up, we have the Psychosis Crawler, which is a classic. It's a Phyrexian Horror Artifact Creature for 5 generic. It has ***, and its power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand, and whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. So it's nice to have draw effects onto the battlefield. But unfortunately, I haven't seen a lot of draw effects in this deck so far, so we will see how this goes. Next up, let's see, we have the Scrap Trawler, which is another classic. It's a construct artifact creature for 3 generic. It's a 3/2. Whenever it or another artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser mana value. So again, another way to get stuff back from the graveyard. So that's a 4th or 5th. Sculpting Steel, this is a classic. Again, it's 3 generic. It's an artifact. You may have Sculpting Steel enter the battlefield as copy of any artifact on the battlefield. Always very good in an artifact deck, but I don't know if in this one you will want to go so hard onto that. Now, next up, we have the Scythe Claw, which is 5 generic artifact equipment living weapon. And the equipped creature gets +1/+1. And whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life, rounded up for 3 generic. This is a crazy, crazy living weapon. It's not bad because it can really make your opponents hate you, and it's something that needs to be dealt with right away. It's a later game kind of thing that you will play, but at the same time, you got to remember, I have not seen so far anything that makes you go wide or anything that makes you go above and beyond your opponent's defenses, which means that realistically, unless you give flying or menace or shroud or something to those creatures, this is going to be hitting a wall. I have not seen a lot of trampling either, so keep that in mind. Okay, now we have the Shine Shadow Snarl, Spire of Industry, which is always great, Temple of Silence, Other End. It's an instant that exiles target non-land permanent. That's nice. It's a simple way to just exile something. Vault of the Archangel, which is very nice. Yawmoth's Vile Offering, which is a 4 generic and 1 black legendary sorcery. You may cast legendary sorcery only if you control a legendary creature or planeswalker. You put up to 1 target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. Exile Yawmoth's Vile Offering. This is a very nice card. Again, this is the 5th or 6th graveyard interaction for this deck. So definitely it plays in with Brimaz. It's really, really good. Now, Bojuka Bog. One thing that I have not seen, though, I would like to point out, not a lot of sack outlets. So there aren't a lot of things that you will sack to that make a lot of sense with this deck. Next up, we have the Bojuka Bog, which is a classic, the Command Tower, Commander Sphere, of course, and I would like to point out that maybe it's a bit better to get the talismans out of this. But again, we will go over what we could change in the deck proper later down the road. Then we have the Evolving Wilds, of course. A classic. Then we have First Sphere Gargantua, which is a 5/4 Phyrexian horror for 4 generic and 2 black. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and you lose 1 life, and it has Unearth, which is not bad. Now, Unearth, it returns the card from graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step, or if it will leave the battlefield, and you can only unearth as a sorcery. So, not a bad card, and it's a Phyrexian to boot. Yoki, Fractured Power Stone, as a 2 generic artifact. You tap it to add 1 mana, generic, and then you tap it to roll a Planar die. Activate only as a sorcery. Another Planar die thing that can be removed if you're not playing Planechase. Goldmire Bridge, I really love these lands for artifact decks. Night's Whisper, you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life, which is a nice sorcery and allows you to draw finally some draw engine into the deck. Next up, we have the Ores of Locket, which is a 3 generic that taps for either white or black, and for 4 black or 4 white or whatever combination of those, you tap and sacrifice this to draw 2 cards. So finally a little bit of mana color, because so far most of it has not been signets or talismans. It's been generic so far. Now we have the Ores of Signet, which is a classic artifact for 2 generic. You tap 1 and tap this. You add 1 white and 1 black. Really nice, really a classic card. Then Path of Ancestry, Phyrexian Ghoul, which is a 2/2 Phyrexian zombie. You sacrifice a creature. It gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn. So this is a sack outlet finally for 2 generic and 1 black. Not bad. Next up, we have the Rager, of course. This is another classic with very beautiful art that I've never seen before. It's a 2/2 Phyrexian horror creature for 2 generic and 1 black. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Okay, always good. Then we have the Silver Quill Campus, Terramorphic Expanse, Wayfarer's Bauble, another classic for 2 generic, and you tap it, you sack the Wayfarer's Bauble to search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield, tap, and then shuffle. Okay. Next up, we have the Hedron Archive for 4 generic. It's an artifact that you tap for 2 generic mana, and then for 2 generic, tap this and you sacrifice Hedron Archive to draw 2 cards. Ambition's Cost is a sorcery. You draw 3 cards, you lose 3 life. It's a bit expensive to do that, but okay. Arcane Signet, this is a classic that everybody knows. Okay, next up we have Bloodline Pretender, an artifact creature shapeshifter, 2/2 for 3 generic. so this is not a Phyrexian. Has changeling, but it is every creature type. It is a Phyrexian. As it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type, and whenever another creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on the Pretender. Not a bad card. I was hoping for something that gives +1/+1 or more to the creature type of the chosen kind, but okay. Next up, we have the Bone Shredder. This is a beautiful, beautiful illustration by Ron Spencer. You can definitely tell his style from a mile away. Now, it's a 1/1 Phyrexian minion creature for 2 generic and 1 black. It has flying, it has echo at the beginning of your upkeep. If this came out of your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its echo cost. So it ends up costing you a grand total of 6 mana. And when it enters the battlefield, you destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. Unfortunately, even though I love the illustration, it's not a great removal. There are better. Burnished Heart, this is a classic, yes. Always good. Despark. Now this is a good interaction for these colors, so I'm happy to see it here. Go for the throw. Destroy target non-artifact creature. It's a nice instant for 1 generic and 1 black, so that's a nice one. Graveshifter. This is a changeling 2/2 shapeshifter creature for 3 generic and 1 black. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target creature card from graveyard to your hand. So that's kind of a reanimator. So you know, it's the 6th or 7th way to get something back from your graveyard. Not bad at all. Cascade, the Flesh Sculptor. This is a 1/3 Phyrexian human artificer for 2 generic and 1 black. You tap and sacrifice 3 other artifacts and or creatures. You look at the top 3 cards of your library. You put 2 of them into your hand and then the other in your graveyard. And it has partner. If you can have 2 commanders if they both have partner. So this is kind of like a draw engine, but it's quite expensive for what it does. You need to sack stuff. I guess it's a sack outlet, but there are better ways to do both, in my opinion. Master Splicer. This is another classic. It's a 1/1 Phyrexian human artificer for 3 generic and 1 white. And it says, when Master Splicer enters the battlefield, you create a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian golem artifact creature token. Golems you control get +1/+1. As I said, this is another theme, right? It's the 4th theme of the deck. You create golems, so it's got quite a little bit going on here. Okay. Next up, we have the Meteor Golem, which is a 7 generic artifact creature golem for 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Really expensive removal. You have a Mind Stone, of course. For this kind of deck, having a Mind Stone, I don't know if it works out because there aren't a lot of colored output artifacts in the end. So far, we've only seen 2, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe if you don't count the Arcane Signet, of course, or the Commander Sphere. So this is a 2 generic artifact. You tap it to add 1 generic mana, and then 1 generic mana, and tap this card to sacrifice it and draw a card. Not bad usually, but maybe in this deck not so good. Mortify, another good interaction that destroys target creature enchantment. It's an instant. It's only 1 generic and 1 white, 1 black. So that's good. Shattered Angel. It's a Phyrexian angel for 3 generic and 2 white. And it's a 3/3 flying. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may gain 3 life. So not bad, I guess. It's Phyrexian. It lets you get stuff whenever somebody plays some land. Maybe there are better slots, but not bad. Shimmer Mirror. This is a 2/2, 3 generic artifact creature mirror with flash, and you may cast artifact spells as though they had flash. Interesting choice for this kind of deck. It has a lot of artifacts, but I would think that it is better played into other artifact decks rather than this one. On top of that, it's not a Phyrexian. Soul Ring, the beautiful Soul Ring, always present. Source of Plowshares, this is great removal as usual. Tainted Field, Talisman of Hierarchy, finally, one of the talismans. You tap to add 1 generic and tap to add 1 white or 1 black. Talisman of Hierarchy deals 1 damage to you. It's an artifact, comes in play for 2 generic. Talismans are really good, and this is what I was hoping for seeing into this kind of deck. Victimize. Now, this is a sorcery for 2 generic, 1 black. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. Sacrifice a creature. If you do, return those cards onto the battlefield tapped. Another way to bring back cards from the graveyard. It's only from your graveyard, but it's still really good because you have, well, to be fair, I've only seen like 2 sack outlets, but you know, if creatures die, you can bring them back. Not bad. I mean, not bad. It's not the greatest. All right. Completed Huntmaster is a 2/3 Phyrexian Elf Warrior for 2 generic and 1 black. You tap 1, a generic, and tap this creature to sacrifice another creature or artifact. You incubate 3. So this is a really good addition to this kind of deck because it's a sack outlet. It allows you to incubate, create more tokens. Really wonderful, and it's an uncommon from the current set of March of the Machine. So quite a good choice. Next up, Phyrexian Gargantua, another Phyrexian from this current set of March of the Machine. It's a 4/4 Phyrexian Horror for 4 generic and 2 black, and when it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life, so it's a draw outlet as well. And then we have 10 plains and 13 swamps. Okay, so that's the gist of the deck, and we will give you our thoughts just now. I believe the deck feels kind of like a jack of all trades but king of none. You have 4 ongoing themes with this deck here because this commander allows you to, whenever you cast a Phyrexian or artifact, creature spell, you can incubate. So you need Phyrexians and or artifact creatures to be able to do stuff, to incubate and create those wonderful tokens that you want. And then at the beginning of each end step, which means also the end step of your opponents, if a Phyrexian has died under your control this turn, you get to proliferate. So you have the proliferation aspect, which can be tokens of any kind, either +1/+1 counters or any other counters. You have artifact creatures and Phyrexians, which I will count as 1 because they do the same thing under him. And then you have the golems, because that's another thing that is a recurring theme. So you have a lot of golems generation, or the reanimate idea behind this deck. So it's a bit of everything all at once, and I think for the deck itself, we will go in the analysis just now, but there are better choices. You got to narrow it down a little bit more as to what you wanted to do. On top of that, the Planechase cards are something that, you know, they're good for what Planechase can be, but it's something that I would remove right away if you're playing with other players that don't play Planechase. And then you have some spots there to replace good cards into. I will say that I'm a bit underwhelmed as to the choice of early mana, because early colored mana, I should say, because yeah, you have the Commander Sphere and the Signet, but realistically you will want a bit more to be able to, on turn 3 or turn 2, depending on what kind of artifacts you're running, to be able to cast your commander as soon as possible. The interactions themselves, they're not that bad for single target. So you have quite decent interactions for a single target, but you don't have very good ones board wipes. So that limits you either onto Phyrexian scriptures, a really expensive creature like the Cataclysmic Gearhulk. So that's not something that I would do. There's a Phyrexian Rebirth, that's a good card, but you don't have a lot of wipes and outlets. Overall, this deck is not bad, but it needs a lot of focusing and it needs a lot of tinkering, I would say, for it to become better. Now, I'll test this deck against the other decks of this Commander set, and we'll see which one seems to be better. And at the end of the video, after I've done that, I will inform you kind of how it plays, if my thoughts were wrong or correct, and see if it's really that good, or if it's just a good base for somebody who has Phyrexian cards and wants to play a Phyrexian deck, but it's something that might require a little bit more of an investment with other cards. Maybe you already have them, or maybe you need to buy them or trade for them or open them, because it seems a bit of a jack of all trades game on. Anyway, that's it.